Hi, this is Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're listening to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from Monrovia, California, this is the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week is our college football analyst, Josh Schaefer, our college football expert, Lyle Goldstein, our executive producer, Brady Klein, and I'm your host for the evening,
Harlem Globetrotter, Blake
Harris. Brady, that was impressive there. Let's see what more you got. Come on.
Okay, put the ball
Come
on. Oh, hang on. I can get it going. I got it.
Wow, look at that.
Not bad. Now, Brady, I just want to let you know that you're not the only one that can do it. Not only am I doing this with my basketball, this is a basketball that is signed by Lamar Odom.
Mine's signed by Shaquille O'Neal.
All right. So
mine's signed by Shannon Brown. I think I lose.
So my basketball, I thought I'd beat you, but no, yours is signed by Shaq. But okay, there it goes. The water almost fell. How's everyone's Tuesday night going tonight?
Well, Blake, I'd like to show this bad boy off. So we have a brand new microphone, and it's not being used. It is in the box because
and there we go.
Maybe you should buy some new Wi-Fi.
Bad first shift, -1. So the reason it's not being used is because they don't come with XLR cables. And there's Blake. I realized that the XLR cables that I always had with my broadcast equipment at school, which Lyle has probably seen, I used to steal from work. I worked in the broadcast lab, so I'd have access to all the XLR cables, I could ever dream of. So I returned all of those when I left. So I had to buy a new XLR cable, and this was delivered with a notification in my email that said, "Oh, so funny story. So your XLR cable, we don't have those. So we're going to order them and then have it sent to you." So that was last week. So I have now had this show, or this microphone, for our fantasy draft last Thursday and for this week, and still can't use it. I'll get it. I think I'll get the cable tomorrow.
Was this on Amazon?
This was on Amazon.
File a complaint. You'll get it for free. Or just have Lyle's dad call him for you.
There you go. Well, based on what everyone can see, I think everyone can rock it right now. Based on our shirts, guys, as you can all see, we're all rocking these Clemson shirts, except for Lyle, because
I'll show yours.
I'm wearing ACC gear, boys. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. It's fair enough. It's fair.
Makes sense. Our good buddy Andrew Coster sent us this Clemson merchandise, and we're actually going to be having him on the show later to talk about Clemson, to break down the ACC, to go over full in depth. And as you can tell by Lyle's shirt, the ACC now includes Notre Dame. But guys, before we get to the ACC, just some news that I want to get to beforehand. But before we get to the news, as always, you guys know what's coming. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter at the HHShow_. Go over there, give us a follow, and follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. Guys, if we can reach 100 followers by next week's show, we're going to be doing a giveaway. A giveaway I cannot mention. A giveaway I cannot give too much, in-depth analysis on. Sorry, I had a brain fart right there like Brady did last week when he was having issues.
Yep.
We're going to be giving something out. So if you haven't already, if you have an Instagram account, go follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. Again, that is at Harris Highlight Show. You guys can also listen to the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link to that is in the description below, or you can go over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, hit the follow, hit the subscribe. I don't know what buttons they have over there. You guys can listen over there. We've currently done the Big 12 preview, an SEC preview. This can be our ACC preview. We did a fantasy football draft last week. So if you want to check all that stuff out, go over there. You guys can listen. You guys can also support the show by donating to the Super Chat. As you guys saw, Josh has a brand new microphone. That was courtesy of some generous super chat donations in the past. So again, you guys don't have to donate $50, $100. You guys can donate $1, $2, $5, however much you want to donate. It helps the show out. It helps us do it. It helps us do this on a week-to-week basis. And if you have a question you'd like answered, if there's a topic you'd like to have discussed, you guys can include that in your super chat donation, and we will talk about that as well. You guys can also become a Patreon member for as little as $1 a month. You guys can unlock exclusive content. Last week, we did a fantasy football draft that included members of our Patreon site. So again, if you guys want access to exclusive benefits, some awesome content, the chance to talk to us one-on-one, and a whole lot more, you guys can go over to our Patreon link that is in the description below, or you can go to patreon.com/The Harris Highlight Show. Again, it's a way to support the show, and it's a way for you guys to get exclusive access to benefits that not a lot of people get access to. I think we officially have 10 or 11 Patreon members right now. So those guys got some awesome stuff coming. And speaking of our thank you. Here it comes, boys. Thank you to Connor Kamazine.
Oh,
Connor,
that ruined it.
Connor, I don't know how to say it. Hopefully it's Kamazine. Connor donated last week. He became a Patreon member. So again, if you want to donate, we'll give you a personal shout out during the next episode. So Connor Kamazine, definitely said that wrong, but thank you so much for joining. And as I said, guys, ACC preview coming up in a bit, but it's time to talk about a bit of the news that came out. Now, we've talked about it in the previous, right the first time. All right, so I did get it right the first time. It's got a Yankees logo, so that's okay, Connor. We like the Yankees here. Guys, Jamar Chase, who was arguably the best wide receiver in all college football, Blitnikoff winner last year, was likely going to win the Blitnikoff Award this year. He decided to opt out. He's a top 5 pick, most likely. If anything, he's going to be a top 10 guaranteed pick. Now, this is, I don't know, like the 4th or 5th top 10, caliber player we've seen opt out so far. We still got Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, who haven't opted out yet for whatever reason. They still want to play. But Jamar Chase, best wide receiver in college football, he opts out. What are you guys' thoughts on this? Obviously, he has nothing left to prove. I mean, essentially, aside from winning the Heisman, he's done everything a wide receiver can really do. But what were you guys' thoughts when you heard that he decided to opt out, especially kind of this late? We saw a bunch of players opting out a month ago. He decided to wait, throughout the entire month of August and opt out at the very end.
Yeah, I think that it definitely hurts LSU more than it hurts him. I don't think this is a big deal for him at all. I don't think he's going to lose any credibility. I don't think his draft stock is going to go down. Like Blake said, I mean, he has nothing more to prove. He won a national championship, and he won the Biletnikoff, and he was probably going to do that this year. I think it's a smart move for him. I mean, look, I'm not saying he's like quitting on anybody at all. I'm not putting that out there whatsoever. But like LSU probably was not going to go undefeated this year. He's already won a national championship. He's already won the Biletnikoff. And now what he wants to do is he wants to be a first-round pick. He wants to be a top 10 pick. And I think the best chance for him to do that is probably to sit out to stay healthy. And you guys know that I am not a huge fan of sitting out of bowl games unless it's like you're going to the Cheez-It Bowl and you're going to be a first-round pick. You might as well not play. And obviously Lyle's different. I'm a big fan in play if it's a meaningful game. And right now in this environment, this is not going to be a huge meaningful season for him. It could be, but he does not need to play to live to the fullest and to, live up to his potential. He's already done that. In my opinion.
Right.
We talked about this weeks ago when we first talked about Caleb Farley opting out, and we talked about Rashad Bateman opting out. I think I said I can almost bank on it now. These will not be the biggest names that opt out. And since then, you look at the mock drafts for the first rounders of 2021. Most of these guys to this point are sitting out either because they're Big Ten and Pac-12 guys that have had their season canceled, or because they're doing what is smartest for them and smartest for their future. Micah Parsons is sitting out. Greg Rousseau is sitting out. Jalen Twyman sitting out. Now Jamar Chase is sitting out. And there's others. In a season where 2 of the Big 5 conferences are not playing, a lot of guys are already sitting out. Like in baseball, most people say, or in the NBA, most people are saying, whoever wins this championship, there's no asterisk. To win this championship is going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. In college football, when you literally do not have a few handfuls of some of the best teams playing and some of the best players playing, like winning a championship, which Josh talked about, Jamar Chase has already done, it just feels a little insignificant this year. And especially for a guy that's going to go top 7 at the lowest, it makes all the sense in the world for him to sit out.
I'll say this, and I'm not even going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say this, and I'm going to bring up a hypothetical because I know Blake loves those.
I do.
It sucks to see such a great talent opt out. It's a shame we don't get to see him play this year with what would have been a really interesting LSU team with Miles Brennan at the helm. In Jamar Chase's Twitter post, he posted, this graphic. You can't see it, but he posted that graphic. Whatever, long explanation. He never said he was going to the NFL draft. He didn't say he was going to go to the NFL draft. He said, I can't wait to return to the field in 2021. That's what he said. What field is that? Most likely it's going to be the NFL. Obviously, right. We all think he's top 5, top 7, top 3, whatever you want to call him, draft pick, almost guaranteed.
I don't even think Ed Orgeron would tell him to come back to school.
No. Listen. I'm not saying there's a chance he will, but
he's leaving it open.
He's leaving it open. We've seen guys say, I'm taking this year off to prepare for the next level and prepare for the NFL draft. Jamar Chase is leaving everything open and saying, I am not playing this year. Because say the SEC gets canceled 2 games in and they move to a fall or a spring schedule. Maybe just Jamar Chase, come back then. Does he, play that second half of the season there? Does he sit out this whole season? There's so many options that he can do. It's going to suck not seeing him on the field. He was so fun to watch this last year. But he didn't say he was going to the NFL draft, and he said he's returning to the field in 2021, wherever it may be. So that's my thought on that, and that's what I got away from reading that was there was no clear indication that he was going to the NFL draft right now. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense for him to. I'm not saying he's not going to, but I was just my thought on that as well.
Let me be nitpicky for a second before Blake hops in here, and this is like the 4 of us went to journalism school thing. All the headlines say
3 of us graduated. But
That's true. Hey, I completed my degree. I just, don't have it.
Did you finish that class yet?
Dude, almost. I just I'm not doing it right now because I don't need to. It's like a 28 quiz class. I've got 14 done and I did it 2 days. So I'm fine for a little while. I'm going to sit back and chill until September 28th.
Smart.
Yeah. But here's my issue with it is all the major outlets, not going to name anybody by names, but all the major outlets have said, oh, Jamar Chase declares for the NFL draft. That's a -2, boys. That's 2 really bad shifts. So, I'm going to get some pucks on net here.
Get pucks in deep there, boy.
I'm a -2 for the day. But so many people are reporting that he's declared for the NFL draft, and then in the first paragraph of the article have been he did not specifically declare for the NFL draft. I'm that's a bad headline. Do you know how many people are seeing that and are being suddenly misinformed right off the bat by just not reading the article? And it's happening all the time because when I first saw it, I thought, oh, wow, that's huge, good for him. And then I read his post, and then I was like, oh, that's not right. And then I went back and reread some of the articles, and they're like, oh, yeah, he didn't actually declare yet. We just think he is. And then he tweeted this morning. So I guess he tweeted Tuesday morning, or maybe it was last night. And he said, I would have preferred to tell y'all myself with 0 context. So I'm assuming, I'm not going to assume. I'm going to think in my head that he's tweeting that out to be somebody else leaked it to you guys, but I was hoping to come out and tell you what my plan was on my own, but it got out there before I could.
Yeah. So, by the way, Josh, you're at -2.
A -2. We'll get some pucks on net. We'll put one in there, and I'll be a -1.
I was gonna say every time Josh does that, he goes in 15 second timeout. So Josh, bye. All right. So my thing is, guys. All right, I'll take it off and I'll add Josh back. Yeah, he's going to the NFL. There's no reason for him to come back. He's already accomplished everything. He's won the Bolitnikoff, won a national championship. Again, unless he wants to go for history and be the first wide receiver since the 90s, whenever it was when someone last won. So I don't get why he'd want to come back. It's smart for him. He's got to be, I'd say, top 10. That's locked in. Has a chance to be top 5 because he's just, I'm not going to say by far the best wide receiver in this draft class, but he's pretty separated.
I'll say it. He's by far the best wide receiver in this draft.
All right, so I can see it. So, this guy, he's got nothing to prove. It's kind of what we said with Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields. If they declare they're going to be top 5 picks, Greg Rousseau, we saw with him, he, opted out and he declared he's going to be a top 5, top 6 guaranteed pick. So Jamar Chase, as college football fans, we personally hate to see it. I want to see everyone play, but I understand why, and he'll definitely be missed. But it's definitely, guys, gonna hurt LSU. I think. I mean, this is we talked about it in the SEC show where they're losing Joe Burrow. Now all of a sudden, not only are they down Justin Jefferson from last year, they're now down Jamar Chase. I get they're still gonna have a pretty good offense. They're still gonna be fine, but this is definitely a blow for LSU. I mean, we weren't really that high on him. I think when we did our predictions last week, some of us had him losing 2 games. I think I had him losing 3 games. I think without Jamar Chase, that could be a potential one-loss, difference maker, not having a wide receiver like that. So LSU now, all of a sudden, they potentially can go 7-3, 6-4. I wouldn't be too shocked on that. But moving on to some other news before we get to our ACC preview, and we talked about this in the group chat. It's nothing really official yet. I don't even have a graphic for it yet, but the Big Ten. So we all know, we've talked about this in previous episodes, that a lot of parents in the Big Ten, a lot of players from the Big Ten, they're trying to get a season going. They're trying to play this fall. And something actually came out the other day where it turns out Ohio State, they didn't vote against not playing. I think initially it was like Nebraska and Iowa, I want to say, but now it turns out Ohio State, they voted in favor to play. So it turns out good old Donnie T himself had a phone call today with the Big Ten commissioner. And now, according to Donnie T, he said we're on the 1 yard line. Now, that can mean either we're on the 1 yard line or we're on the 1 yard line with 99 yards to go. We'll have to wait and see. But Dan Patrick did come out and tweet. Now, I will say I'm going to hold my breath with what Dan Patrick is reporting. But Dan Patrick, he was kind of ahead of it when, they were talking about all the seasons canceling. He was kind of ahead of it, saying it's going to be official. So, again, it's nothing's truly official. But I will say Dan Patrick did tweet out saying, I think if there's like one final vote, the Big Ten can come back October 10th. So, guys, let's say this happens. Let's say the Big Ten comes back October 10th. What are your thoughts on that? And what do you think we could potentially see from the Big Ten season should they come back October 10th?
I want to say that it was SVP the other night who kind of talked about how the Big Ten, first of all, said we're not playing football. And then 2 days later was like, oh, but come back to campus and pay full price for tuition. And then they're like, hey, so why don't we just, now that everybody's mad, why don't we play football while all the other conferences that are playing are 4 games into their season? Like, that's a real great idea. That doesn't make any sense. I don't know if Trump knows what he's talking about. John Wilner, who covers the Pac-12, he even said, like, hey, just like be as surprised as you will, but like the Pac-12 has not received a call from the White House. I don't know if that was a joke or if it should be taken literally or a little bit of both, but if the Big Ten does this, I'm very surprised I'd be. And that's a -3, boys. That's a -3. I'd be.
Sorry, Josh. All right, guys. What are your thoughts?
So you're gonna cut him off mid-sentence?
No, bring it back.
I mean, Blake does that to people anyway.
That's true.
But I'd be very surprised if they came back and played by October 10th. It's like the only way to do that. The only way that they do that is to play a shortened season and just end when everybody else ends. It doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
If they were really going to start on October 10th, I mean, I guess hypothetically, the college football playoff committee and the NCAA, they could push the playoff back, or not the committee, they don't decide that, but the NCAA could push the playoff back like 2 weeks if they really wanted, and the Big Ten plays a shortened season. But I'm going to wait and see on this. I don't think in the end the Big Ten actually comes back.
No,
I don't think the Big Ten is going to play football. That's all I'll say.
I also want to point out real quick, like, what is the NCAA going to even do? Like, can they push the playoffs back? Because we've clearly seen that, number one, there's no unity between any of the conferences, and there's no leadership. Each conference has its own leadership and its own board and its own athletic directors and its own conference commissioner. But other than that, like,
and
the
all
NCAA,
of them are terrible. And all of them are terrible.
Yeah, and the ACC seems like they've always kind of been on top of things, but I thought the Big Ten was on top of things too. And Greg Sankey, I don't know what's going on anymore. But I mean, if you really think about it, like, the NCAA has done nothing for this. They've decided when things were going to be canceled in the spring, but now that we're talking about college football in the fall, this is something I've said every week. There's no leadership. There is no higher power in charge of college football that is deciding anything. Everybody's acting independently, and I think that's what our biggest problem is.
Yeah, I looked.
I'm saying what a great first year for Kevin Warren as the commissioner of the Big Ten. Like, hey, welcome to the Big Ten. Oh, here's all of this. It's kind of like when Adam Silver got taken over as the commissioner in the NBA, and boom, within the first 3 days, he had to deal with Donald Sterling.
Yeah, that's what as Clippers we do. But I was looking at like what the calendar looks like, and because I think that they said that the final playoff rankings, they're coming out like, what was it, like the 19th, or it was something like that, the 20th. I want to say something around those lines. So if they were to start October 10th, the only way they can make it happen without pushing back the playoffs would be if they were to just do an 8 or 9 game schedule, and even that, like, maybe without a bye, because there's no way for them to fit in a 10 game schedule, especially if you add a bye. So if the Big Ten, if they come out, they have just an 8 game schedule, and if they still have Ohio State going 8-0, they do it dominantly, maybe they can still make it to the playoff. We'll have to wait and see, but it definitely can happen. I just am not going to hold my breath on it, especially considering this is 6 weeks or 5 weeks away or so from this happening. But I mean, there's still a chance, but that's going to be really weird if, let's say, it somehow miraculously comes back, and now all of a sudden the Pac-12 is the only Power 5 conference that's not playing this fall. And I get there's still going to be an asterisk, next to the national champion, but still, I mean, that's going to be interesting to see, because then you're not going to bring the playoff back for just the Pac-12 in the spring. So I guess they'll probably just have a Pac-12 championship. Even if if the Big Ten plays in the spring, I don't think they're going to have any sort of playoff or any of that. But it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Again, I'm not going to hold my breath, but the fact that Dan Patrick did report it, and there are some reports that seem like it's kind of going in the right direction. We're going to have to wait and see. But again, it's just reports, just something for us to talk about, nothing more. But are you guys ready to talk about the ACC now?
Yes.
All right, so we're going to talk about the ACC, and what better way to start talking about the ACC than talking about the best team in the ACC. So we're going to get started with Georgia Tech, guys. So Georgia Tech.
Buzz, baby.
Buzz, guys. We are
Ramblin' Wreck.
We're going to bring in friend of the show who's rocking an awesome Clemson shirt right there. He's the reason three of us are rocking awesome Clemson shirts, as Brady's got around his neck. Andrew Koster, big-time Clemson fan. So we thought when we get started talking about Clemson, who better to bring in than our man Andrew. So Andrew, we saw you a few days ago on the fantasy show. How you doing tonight?
Besides my car dying over the weekend, having to get that fixed, I'm pretty good.
All right, so we got Andrew coming on right now. So Andrew, we're just gonna kind of throw it to you. I mean, I'm sure once you're off, we'll each give our brief Clemson thoughts. But you're the expert when it comes to this. So, what are your thoughts on Clemson in 2020? They, we've talked about it, they don't have Justin Ross for this upcoming season. That is a bit, or Justin Ross. What are you laughing at, Brady? What's he saying?
Nothing.
Oh, I don't know. I thought he was laughing at something. So obviously that's a huge hit, but. Quarterback, running back wise, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, that's the best 1-2 punch you can really ask for in college football. Defensively, I mean, it might not be there, looking back at 2017, 2018, some of the guys they had on that defensive front. Oh, that's short round. That's funny, Brady.
That's what I said to our group. That's why Brady was laughing.
That's where they're going to be great, but I just want to know your thoughts. What are your expectations for them this year in the ACC? Do you think that, they're going to be a national championship contender? Do you think they have the ACC on lock? What are your inside analysis thoughts on the Clemson Tigers for 2020?
Well, it's a little bit different now that Notre Dame's in there. I still think they're the favorite, but Notre Dame is definitely going to be a challenge, especially when you have a leader like Ian Book, a senior quarterback, leading the way for Notre Dame, and the experienced coach is Brian Kelly. But they definitely are the favorite, and they are definitely going to be hungry after the kind of that embarrassment they had down in New Orleans last year or earlier this year in January against LSU. It's Trevor Lawrence especially. I think when you go back to talking about that we want to play movement and Trevor was at the helm, I think it's partly because he wants to redeem himself for the way he finished last season. I think he feels like he let his teammates down with his performance in the national championship. And let's be real, that's probably the worst game he's ever had in his career. But I think this Clemson team is going to be very hungry just in general. They've got a lot of guys coming back. I mean, they did lose some key guys in Isaiah Simmons, and they lost 3 of their 4 in the secondary, and losing T. Higgins as well. But they've got a lot of good young talent, and especially on the defensive line, they've got some huge stars coming in, particularly at freshman. Brian Breesy, the number 1 overall recruit in the class of 2020. Dabo Swinney said this guy is going to make Christian Wilkins look silly. and that's saying something. And they also had the number one, defensive end as well, and Miles Murphy. And they've also got some good guys coming back, like Tyler Davis, who I think was the ACC Defensive Player of the Year for freshman-wise last year. And they've also got some experience at corner with Darian Kendrick, who is potentially going to be a Jim Thorpe Award winner. And as far as receivers go, that's really their biggest question mark, I think, just because now you don't have Justin Ross. You don't have T. Higgins anymore, especially since he went to the draft. But you've got a lot of young guys. It kind of reminds me of the 2015 season, per se, when they lost Mike Williams the first drive of the opening game of the season. I was right in front of it when it happened, broke his collarbone. They've got some guys who got a little bit of experience. Amari Rogers, who had about, I think, 500-600 yards receiving last year. But last year he also had it was coming off a torn ACL, which he recovered from in 5 months, which is crazy. And they've said he's faster and stronger and healthier than he has been ever before. And they've also got some young talent, Joseph Ngata, Frank Ladson, who did get a little bit of experience last year. I think these guys, it's really going to be their time to shine. And I think they could become one of the best receiving corps by the end of the season in college football, just because they were very highly recruited coming out of high school. And, that was great at developing his players. We just see what he's done. Even when he didn't have the best recruiting classes early on when they were making the playoffs, they were still making great talent. And I think now they've got even better talent. It's just going to get even scarier and scarier to play them.
You mentioned the wide receivers. Obviously, losing Justin Ross and T. Higgins is going to be huge for them. But when you have guys like Ngata and Rogers coming in and combined for, 47 receptions, nearly 700 yards and 7 touchdowns last year, do you think that they actually take that big of a hit in terms of offensive production when they've got those two guys coming in to step into those two guys' place with Higgins and Ross out, and then obviously with Etienne and Lawrence?
No, I really don't, especially because they've also got another weapon at tight end this year, and Braden Galloway. He had a pretty good, very long reception in the national championship game against LSU. He was one of those guys that got suspended for the whole steroids controversy. And I think that with him being back, it's just going to add another weapon, and it'll cause them to have to pay more attention to the tight end. Last year, Clemson really didn't have that. They haven't really had a good tight end since Jordan Leggett. Before that, they had Dwayne Allen and then, of course, Jordan Leggett. But that's really kind of made it to put more pressure on the receivers, because they really haven't taken – I feel like teams haven't taken the tight end position really at Clemson seriously. But now they've got more weapons I feel they're going to have to deal with. And, of course, it helps when you have Travis Etienne to help take some pressure off the passing game as well. And when you have a great quarterback to throw you the ball in Trevor Lawrence, I think they're going to be ready to go. I think that their wide receivers, with the raw talent they have, they're going to develop a big time over this year. And I think it's going to not be much of a drop off at all. If anything, it could be better.
Josh, you have something? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I totally agree, especially considering that Rodgers' numbers dipped last year. And then, I think that they're probably going to get better this year. And, if you take two guys like that out of the receiving core, and Ross and T. Higgins, then maybe – and Lawrence didn't have this problem in the past, but maybe he even spreads the ball around a little bit more this year than he had in recent years.
Oh, I think he definitely needs to. I think he also, the main thing that Trevor Lawrence needs to focus on this year is not trying to do too much. Go back to what he was doing more freshman year and not trying to always play hero ball, which I think he just tried to do a little too much last year. Hence why his interceptions went up. He was trying to force things too much. But I think he's also – I think you're right, though, Josh. I think he does need to spread it out overall in general, just because then people won't just think, oh, he's going to go to this receiver or this receiver. It's just going to be like one or two options. They're going to have to pay attention to everybody. Everyone's going to be a threat.
Coster, you followed Clemson for such a long time. In one word, how would you describe Trevor Lawrence?
Man, that's tough. There's so many words I could use to describe him. I just say poise. There's no stage that's too big for him. Even when he was a freshman, we saw what he did in the national championship against Alabama. Became, I think, the second true freshman all time to start and win a national championship. So that was a big deal. And even last year when he was struggling at times, the stage wasn't too big for him. Go back to the Ohio State game in the Fiesta Bowl last year. They started off down 16-0, and he was a big factor in leading that team back. He had one of the most insane quarterback runs I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Which I still cannot. I still am in shock whenever I see that again. I'm like, when did he learn how to run like that? But yeah, I think going back to that, or with Josh's point as well, he needs to use his legs a little less, but he still needs to use them some. But yeah, staying with you, poise. He's just, no moment's going to be too big for him. He's always going to be calm. He's never going to be too worried about no matter how much his team is down.
Love it.
Well, my man, but before we let you go, I have two parting questions for you to answer. My first is, what are your realistic expectations from this year? Like, do you think they're going to win it all? To win the ACC, and give me a win-loss prediction. And number two, we know that Notre Dame's probably going to be competing the most for the ACC, maybe like North Carolina. What is one team from your perspective in the ACC that you think could be a potential sleeper that I'm not saying they can knock off, Clemson in a game or so, but who do you think could potentially make a push and potentially make an appearance in the ACC title game?
All right, that's actually a good question. I actually thought you guys might ask me that, so I had that prepared. But first,
I only ask the best questions, Andrew. You know.
You do. So regarding Notre Dame, and Lyle, I have a bunch of respect for Notre Dame, especially when it comes. We haven't seen as good as they haven't been as great necessarily in the playoff, but in the regular season, when it comes to big games, they very rarely get blown out. I mean, I think Miami in 2017 is the last time I remember them getting blown out in a big game.
What about the national championship, Lyle?
Well, and then Clemson in the playoff and Michigan.
I was talking more regular season overall.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Well, Michigan.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that one. But I'm just saying, in general, they give teams a fight for their money. So I would not be surprised if they did find a way to beat Clemson, just because they're very experienced. They have a great leader, a quarterback in Ian Book, a great head coach in Brian Kelly. And I don't know necessarily how many other guys they lost on that team from last year, but I think that team's going to be also one to bounce back from what was a disappointing season. But as far as Clemson goes, I think realistically they can go 10-0. And the worst I see is going 9-1 with a loss at Notre Dame. They're they're going to be hungry. Like I said earlier, they're hungry. Especially with the way the national championship ended last year, I think they have something to prove, and also since Clemson has made the playoff every year that they don't win the national championship, the year after they won it. So hopefully that trend keeps going. But
so you're saying get it on Clemson plus 350 at Vegas to win the Natty. That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. Exactly.
Okay, so you heard it here first, Blake. We're bringing back Blake's bets. Hammer it. Blake's bets, Clemson plus 350. But Andrew, we appreciate it, man.
Hold on. You guys still let me get that sleeper in, because this is a very important one.
Oh, that's right. The
people
sleeper.
are not talking about Louisville.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, people are not talking enough about this Louisville team. Scott Satterfield, his second year at Louisville, he turned that team around. Well, I think they were 2-10 in Bobby Petrino's following year, and now last year I think they went 8-5, and they've got a great trio on offense coming back. Mikhail Cunningham at quarterback, Javian Hawkins at running back who rushed for over 1,500 yards, and Tutu Atwell, a wide receiver who rushed for over 1,200. I mean, I'm just glad they kind of redid the schedule, because Clemson was going to have to play them before, and now they don't. That team's going to be very I think that team's going to give a lot of people fits. And if Clemson doesn't play them or Notre Dame or North Carolina in the ACC championship game, I think it's going to be Louisville.
I like it. Well, as always, Andrew, you always come in with the Clemson heats, going back to our days back in the studio. So we appreciate it. And I'm sure if there's any Clemson news and whatnot, we don't have enough time tonight, unfortunately, but we definitely have to get you back on, because you still owe us a New Orleans story. So we're just going to leave it at that to give people a chance to tune in for when Andrew Koch is going to be back in. Something happened in New Orleans during the national championship.
No, it was the day before.
It was the day before. I thought it was the night. The night of, but the day before. So we'll just leave it at that. But Andrew, as always, thank you, my man. Looking forward to playing you in fantasy in both leagues, and take care out there.
All right, Dan. Thank you. You too. I was hoping you all forget about that story, though.
Not a chance.
We never will. We never will, because one day we'll get the truth out of you.
I'm sure.
All right, my man. Thank you so much again.
Thanks for the swag, Coster.
Welcome, guys. Lyle, if you want anything, just let me know. I got you.
All right, well,
I think he's fine with his Notre Dame shirt. I think he's more than okay with that.
At least for this year until Notre Dame's out of the ACC.
Yeah. All right, my man. All right, guys. So good old Andrew Koster, who friend of the show. We've talked about him many times. Friend of the program. And if you guys want to know how he could be a guest on a future show, it's been taken there at the bottom. He was a Patreon donor. So if you guys want to be a future guest on the show, it could be to talk about your favorite team, talk about a topic you'd like to talk about, anything you pretty much want to discuss. Head over there. All that information's there. But guys, speaking of contenders in the ACC, probably the number 2 biggest contender in regards to that is a team that normally isn't in the ACC. For all of you fans that have been complaining, wanting them to finally join the ACC, this is your chance. This is your year. And what we kind of just did with Andrew, where he pretty much explained to us why Clemson's going to be good, what to expect from them. We're going to turn to our Notre Dame analyst, Lyle Goldstein here.
Relax for a while here.
We're going to kick back. Lyle, the biggest Notre Dame fan that we know, probably the biggest that you can come by. They're in the ACC this year. I've personally gone on record saying I think by them joining the ACC actually gives them an easier schedule because their non-con usually have some really tough opponents. But you're the expert, you're the fan, so explain to us what we can expect from the Fighting Irish in 2020.
You want me to keep it short for you guys? Because I can go like this. Notre Dame's going to be 7-0 entering November 7th. They're going to play Clemson at home. They're going to lose by 3 touchdowns. They're then going to win their next 3 games, go to the ACC title game, and they're going to lose by 3 touchdowns again. I mean, that's just what in the Ian Book era, that's just what they do. I mean, if you want more in-depth analysis than that, in the 4 games in his career that Ian Book's lost, I mean, one of them he barely played in against Miami. And that game he threw 6 passes. One of them was a pick 6. He then played against Clemson in the playoff, and he was not good in that game. He 17 for 34 in a pick. He threw 2 picks against Georgia in a loss. And against Michigan last year, wow, this one just wows me every time I look at it. 8 for 25 for 73 yards.
That's a Bo Nix stat.
You thought Bo Nix was bad. Come on.
I mean, that's just what you're going to get. I've said it countless times on this show. I think Notre Dame's going to lose 1 game entering the ACC title game. I mean, we've seen what Ian Book does against competition that is inferior, so to speak, is he handles it and he gets Notre Dame wins, but he never elevates when they have to play a big team. Every time they play a big team, Notre Dame never seems to kind of climb the hill and pick up that big win. And then we've talked about in the past, Notre Dame being independent, that they probably need to go 12-0 to get into a playoff. This year, it's probably going to be as simple as they'd have to win the ACC, but that's going to require beating Clemson at least once if the 2 match up in the ACC title game. And unless Book has had some type of miraculous offseason that is going to blow everybody away, I mean, I'm pretty sure where I stand on these guys. Yeah, they lost a couple of guys on defense last year. They did lose their 2 best offensive weapons with Claypool and Kmet. Usually they have guys in the wings just kind of waiting and pick up the production as time goes. But I think we kind of have a good grasp on, at least with Ian Book under center, what they're probably going to look like.
Lyle, if that November 7th game has fans allowed, you come into Indiana and we're going to go to that game?
Don't tempt me, Brady. I mean, pay to see another blowout loss? Come on.
But it's Clemson.
That's Lyle's thing.
It's Clemson this time.
I'd think about it. That'd be a pretty fun game to go to. I can't deny that.
Yeah.
I just got the batter in, so now people know we're talking about Notre Dame. But I think Lyle hit it perfectly. It's the fact that Ian Book, he's a serviceable quarterback. He gets the job done when needed. But as we've seen, when Notre Dame has the big games, he just goes Bo Nix on us. He turns into Bo Nix. I think Lyle hit it perfectly. I mean, unless there's a slip up this season, I think it's safe to assume that Notre Dame is probably going to roll through their schedule, lose to Clemson by 3 touchdowns, and then get to the ACC championship and then lose to Clemson by 3 touchdowns. I mean, it's a perfect prediction from Lyle.
Let me wrap this all together with a little bow and with everything that you guys just said in one word. And that's consistency. And I think from Notre Dame in the past couple of years, we just haven't seen that consistency. The way that I look at their schedule right now is there is not a team on their schedule that they cannot beat, including Clemson. They can beat Clemson. However, with that being said, I think they're going to go 10-1. I think they're going to lose to Clemson. But take that with a grain of salt, because there is not a team on this schedule that I don't think Notre Dame could lose to, because that's what we've seen from the past. I mean, we've seen them play go undefeated and then play that big game and then get blown out like Lyle mentioned. But then we've also seen things in the past where the Virginia Tech game last year, and that Virginia Tech game was a microcosm of that entire season for Notre Dame. And that was the game that Lyle was at last year. And that was the turning point for me with Ian Book. And Lyle and I have talked about this on this show before. I was behind Ian Book all the way until that Virginia Tech game. And Lyle came back and he was like, what do you think about Ian Book? And I was like, I don't know anymore. Because here's the thing. Like, for the most part, their running game was pretty good last year. Ian Book was fine. But, like, that game, Notre Dame rushed for, like, a total of, like, 80 yards between Book and the rest of their running backs. And Book was the leading rusher. Or I think their leading rusher was, like, 60 yards and it was Book. But other than that, like, it took a last-minute game-winning drive and a touchdown with 29 seconds left by Ian Book to win that game against a very, very painfully, brutally mediocre Virginia Tech team at home in front of a sold-out crowd. And it was the ugliest 18-play, 87-yard touchdown game-winning drive I have ever seen in my entire life. And I think that that's what we're going to get from Notre Dame until they take that step forward. Like, they're a good team. They're going to lose one game this year. I think they are only going to lose one game this year. But like Lyle said, like, they could win out and then get beat by Clemson by 3 touchdowns, and that's going to be a typical Notre Dame season for them.
The tough part for them, I'll just say before Lyle goes, is the fact that Notre Dame, like, they could beat Clemson. I wouldn't be shocked if they do. It's just the fact that because they play in the regular season, right, Lyle? They do.
Yeah.
In November.
They're going to play them again.
They're going to have to you're going to have to beat Clemson twice, which I just don't think for the most part any team can do. And the fact that you're asking that at Notre Dame, again, I wouldn't be shocked if Notre Dame beats them, but the fact that you're asking them to beat them twice in order just to get to the playoff, I think it's nearly an impossible task.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say about the story Josh was telling about that 18-play drive where Ian Book twice was bailed out because Chase Claypool converted 2 like huge 4th downs. One of them was like a 4th and 18, who, by the way, is gone. Like, their 2 best offensive players are gone. So now a lot more is going to be relied on Ian Book without Kmet and without Claypool. And so you're asking a lot of a guy that has proven that, you know, he has struggled in big games.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Lyle, but Chris Fink is gone too.
Yeah, he's gone.
That's the top 3 receivers for Notre Dame these past 2 years are Claypool, Kmet, and Chris Fink. And all 3 of them are gone. So I think that's a huge loss too. But if you can get the running game going, and if Armstrong stays healthy, and if Book stays healthy, like, they can still score a lot of points probably. I just don't think they're going to beat Clemson twice.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, it'll be exciting to see. So, like I said, everyone that's been demanding Notre Dame to finally join the ACC, now you get your chance. Like I said, I think for Notre Dame, it's actually easy for them now because, you know, that I get people don't like it, but Notre Dame plays good opponents every year. They play good opponents, and, you know, every year they have to play SC, they have to play Stanford, Navy, like. Already they're playing guaranteed good teams, and, you know, I think this actually helps Notre Dame. But guys, moving on now to another team to talk about in the ACC, and that is North Carolina, led by quarterback Sam Howell, who we're all, I think, very high on. We've talked about him. You know, he's an early Heisman, I think, favorite. He's like in top 5 or so. North Carolina last year, I think they went 7-6, I want to say, but their schedule last year, they had so many games where, as we saw against Clemson, they almost knocked them off. They had so many games where they lost by within 3, 4, 5 points, where they were that close to being a 10, 11 win season, you know, potentially. An amazing recruiting class they had this year and last year. Mac Brown's doing a phenomenal job. So the Tar Heels guys, are you high on them going into the season? I don't know what their updated over-under is on wins, but a lot of people have them, you know, aside from Notre Dame, Clemson, as the team that could potentially make a push and potentially make it to the ACC title game. So what are your guys' thoughts on Sam Howell, who had a historic freshman year last year? I think the best statistically wise freshman season of college football history last year, through I think 37, 38 touchdowns. What are you guys' expectations this year?
As you guys know, I was very high on freshman quarterbacks last year, obviously with Jaden Daniels and Keaton Slovis, but Sam Howell was arguably the best of the bunch for freshman quarterbacks last year. So, I mean, I don't even really need to go on and on about how good this guy is as a passer and a leader of an offense, but he's going to do the same thing this year. what's huge for him is he has his top 5 receivers and his starting tight end all coming back this year. And Blake, you mentioned that recruiting class already. They're adding the number 17 receiver in the country and a top 20 recruit in Georgia. His name's Josh Downs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this kid, but I watched his Max Preps tape today. I watched his 24/7 tape. This dude is 5'10", 175, but he plays like N'Keal Harry. Like, they can have him swing out of the backfield. He runs dudes.
So it's kind of like a Rondale Moore type player.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what he is. He's 5'10", 175, and N'Keal was much bigger than that. But he plays like a running back who's actually a wide receiver. Like, he runs into people. They can use him as a slot back and catch quick passes, like on a screen pass, and then swing out of the backfield or something like that. They use him to catch deep balls. Like, this guy's probably going to step in and be like their number 2 receiver right away, because they have Daz Newsome already too, who was a lot of people liked him in fantasy last year. I don't think our friend TJ did, because TJ played him when he had a bye. And then
no, it wasn't a bye. He overslept practice, and they didn't announce that he wasn't playing, and then he didn't play.
So TJ hates Daz Newsome, and then TJ lost that game, didn't he?
Yeah, because he overslept practice and he was in his lineup.
Yeah, so I mean, he's gonna have 2 really good receivers, but he's got his top 6 targets coming back. So I think the offense is gonna be good. Look, I think there's debate about how good Miami's gonna be, but I'm gonna give UNC the edge over the Hurricanes. So I think North Carolina is a 2-loss team this year.
Blake, the over-under for North Carolina is 8.5 total wins.
Interesting. Is that the updated one with the new 11-game schedule? I mean, it seems like a fair number still. So
I don't know, because it has Clemson at 11.5.
But that's all the space I have on the monitor.
Not anymore.
Oh,
I would say, look, there's no doubt that UNC has talent, and it's like what Josh talked about. You return Sam Howell, who is on a short list for best quarterback in the country. He's not, but he's on the short list. You return your starting running back in Michael Carter, who went for 1,000 yards last year on not a whole lot of carries either. And now he's going to get the bulk of the workload. And then you return 2,000-yard receivers, and you also have Chaz Surratt on defense. The talent's all there. But even with all that, North Carolina last year didn't really put it all together. Now, obviously, this group is expected to get a lot better. The kicker for me is their pass rush is not great, and their DBs battled a lot of injuries last year. So I kind of want to see how they come back from it. That's my question mark on UNC's part, is how good is their defense going to be outside of one player? Because the offense is going to score points, and they're probably going to put up some video game numbers multiple times this year. It's just, can the defense hold true and kind of keep up with the offense to allow them to really compete in the ACC and win some games?
Had every conference played this season, we don't know if they all will, but had every conference been a normal year, I'd say Sam Howell is top 3 second-year quarterback in all of college football, with the other guys we talked about earlier, Jaden Daniels and Keaton Slovis. But Howell it's such a different style of play and such a different style of competition even than the Pac-12 like we see with Daniels and Slovis, where Howell's, he's going up against a Clemson, but then the next week he'll go up against, a Wake Forest or a Georgia Tech or one of these teams where...
And we have no Wake Forest slander here. Now Captain Rob.
No Wake Forest. You're right.
No Wake Forest slander.
No Wake Forest slander. But it's such a different style of football. East Coast, West Coast football, it's a real thing. It's such a different style of football, and I think Sam Howell does such a great job fitting into that system. You put Sam Howell on, USC, ASU, I don't know how well he does. I think, Keaton Slovis and Jane Daniels are 2 or 3 very different quarterbacks. I'm really high on Sam Howell. I think they're going to hit that over. I just checked again, Blake, it is still 8.5 from multiple sites. Have it at 8.5. So I think North Carolina, 8.5 over with Sam Howell at the helm, stays healthy, stays consistent, and he grows upon what he did last year as a great freshman. They're going to be a tough team to beat for North Carolina.
Yeah, you guys have already said, a lot that, that you took out of my mouth. So I just wanted to look it up a few things. So coming into the season, North Carolina had the 19th best recruiting class, And looking at next year, as of right now, this is according to 24/7 Sports, North Carolina currently has the number 12 recruiting class. So Mac Brown's doing an incredible job recruiting there. But going to North Carolina's schedule last year, guys, I talked about how they had some close games. Even their wins were close. So they started off 4-point win against South Carolina, 3-point win against Miami. They lost at Wake Forest by 6. They lost to Appalachian State by 3, lost to Clemson by 1. They lost in 6 overtimes to Virginia Tech by 2, won by 3 against Duke. They lost by a touchdown to Virginia, lost by a touchdown in overtime to Pittsburgh. Now, they did have a great, 50-point win against Mercer. Well, the end of the year is when they really turned things on because they beat Mercer by 50, beat NC State by 30, and then beat Temple by 40. So they really have things click in those final 3 weeks. But the first 9 to 10 weeks, every game they were playing was literally decided by a touchdown. And again, going back to those losses, I mean, you could flip it any way you want, where 3 of those wins could have been losses, 3 of those losses could have been wins. But this is a team where they could have won 10 or 11 games last year. They also could have won only 4 or 5. If Sam Howell and North Carolina can play the way they clicked those final 3 weeks, I mean, when we get to later in the show, when we show all of our standings, I'm very high in North Carolina this year. I think what they did to close out the season is what we can accept from them this year. They're returning, a bunch of their guys, and Lyle said it perfectly. Their number one concern, I think, would be their defense, because offensively, they got a great quarterback, a great running back, a great wide receiver, and it's just a matter of can things click. So overall, I'm very high on Sam Howell. Brady, I think he's the best sophomore quarterback in the country. We're very high in Slovis, very high on Jane Daniels. I think Sam Howell, I mean, I haven't really looked too in-depth on mock drafts for the 2022 NFL draft, but it's tough to really see, aside from maybe Kayvon Thibodeau, anyone else being a number 1 pick in that draft aside from Sam Howell. I think it's between Sam Howell and Kayvon Thibodeau at this point. But again, a lot can happen between now and the 2022 NFL draft. But I think Sam Howell's special. And again, when Mac Brown was initially hired by North Carolina, I kind of laughed at it. I kind of thought it was a joke. I know he had some previous experience years back with them, I don't know, back in the 80s, 90s, whenever that was, and he was an excellent coach at Texas. But I was thinking Mac Brown coming out of, retirement, his broadcasting days, to coach North Carolina, I didn't really understand it, but props to him. I mean, he has turned them around. Again, back-to-back top 20 recruiting classes. I thought they were a lot higher than 12th in regards to next season. Maybe it's different on a different site than 24/7 Sports, but he's turned them around. They're an exciting team, and I think aside from Clemson and Notre Dame, North Carolina is going to be the team that's going to be competing for the ACC title.
I'll bring this up real quickly, Blake. I just looked up the 2022 mock draft. Granted, it is the all-reliable Walter football.
Oh, no.
So, who knows?
Yeah.
But for 2022...
Most I've seen do have Howell at 1.
Well, this one has... Let's see if it would ever load. The Detroit Lions taking Kayvon Thibodeau at 1, and the Washington Football Club taking Sam Howell at 2. So
there you go. Yeah.
So there you go. He's right in the mix.
So yeah, it's going to be, either Thibodeau, it's going to be Howell. I like this comment right here, or nowhere to go right here, or it keeps going away. Mac Brown reminds me of what an older Dabo would be like. I see it. Guys, but before we move on, my favorite Mac Brown memory, I think I said this to our chat months and months ago, was when he was calling a Friday night BYU football game, and he straight up had to dip in the 4th quarter because he had to do a Saturday morning. I think he was either in flight. He had to catch a flight. He was in studio the next day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that was with Adam Amin, I think, right?
Adam Amin. And he's like, well, I'm going to be calling. And it ended up being a crazy, I think it was an overtime game or something like that. And Mac Brown just had to dip. He just had to dip, so Adam Amin did the rest of the game. But props to him. One final team I want to kind of go in depth and talk about before we just talk about some other teams here and there before we get to our Q&A. And that's Miami. I mean, Miami just, 2 seasons ago, they were ranked 1 or 2 in the country. They were 10-0, and then they went on the road and lost to Pitt, and their season was officially derailed. Last year, they were an absolute joke. Tate Martell is unfortunately not going to be the starting quarterback because they did announce a few weeks ago that De'Ara King, the transfer from Houston, was going to be getting the job. This is the best quarterback Miami has had in a while. I mean, going down the list, they've had some interesting names that have played quarterback for them over the past decade. De'Ara King, I think he's by far the best. Again, people forget that 2 years ago, De'Ara King it was 50 touchdowns and only 10 games played. Had he played the final 2 games of the season and in the team's bowl game, he easily could have had 60 total touchdowns on the season. So they get De'Ara King. He's fully healthy, ready to go. Do you guys think he'll be a big enough difference maker to have Miami potentially contend for the ACC in 2020?
Not to contend for the ACC, but I think they can make a push. Like I said, I think they're right up there with North Carolina for me, but I'm going to give the edge to the Tar Heels. Like, God, this team's offense was so bad last season. They were brutal to watch. Like, N'Kosi Perry was whatever. Tate Martell completed 1 pass. Jaron Williams was fine, but, like, he wasn't very good either. And they scored 50 points twice that last season. It was like 52 against Louisville, and then they scored 60 against, Bethune-Cookman or something like that. And then in their other 11 games, they averaged fewer than 20 points. Like, they were very, very bad. I do think that De'Ara King is going to be good enough to, make them average better than 20 points per game. And I think they can definitely do it against ACC offense or ACC defenses. They'll be fine, but for the most part this year, I think it's the Miami defense that's ultimately going to win them games. There's legitimately 6 teams on their schedule that will not score more than 20 points against them, and that's without Gregory Rousseau.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird because, like I said, I felt like with North Carolina, they have all this talent, and I was a little unsure about them putting it together. Obviously, losing a piece like Greg Rousseau is going to be brutal for the Hurricanes, but I just feel like De'Ara King coming in is going to be that much of a difference maker. I mean, Blake talked about it. This guy was so good before he, opted out or opted not to play. And the season before that, when he lit the world on fire. I think obviously the competition is going to be tougher. But the thing about Miami and an ACC schedule in general is, the ACC is not a powerhouse conference outside of Clemson. And Miami also doesn't have to play Notre Dame. So that's why I was a little higher on Miami. And I think they have a chance to make up for some of the losses last year with a couple extra wins. And I think De'Ara King is that good of a quarterback that he can make that difference. Having said that, the X factor for them, their offensive line. I mean, Josh talked about their offense being brutal to watch. Most of it started up front. Like, that offensive line was brutal last year. I mean, things have to get cleaned up, and it has to get better up front for the Canes. But if it does, I think De'Ara King is that much of a difference maker.
I will say this, Lyle. You said it's a very top-heavy conference. Now you have 2 teams. You bring in Notre Dame, maybe 3, very, very top-heavy. But for me, you'll see it in a minute. But I have 10 teams that have at least 6 wins in this conference. So I think it's the most evenly spread conference across all of college football, where anybody can beat anybody. You look at the Big Ten, you look at the SEC, those bottom half teams, they're not going to beat you. They're not going to get a big-time win. Whereas the ACC, anybody can beat anybody. And I think De'Ara King's such a great player, and he's going to put Miami over the edge. And, you'll see how many wins they have coming up here in a couple minutes. But I think Miami will be, I'm not going to say a very good team, but they'll be a much better team than they have been in years past.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see because De'Ara King, as I said before everyone else spoke, is the best quarterback they've had in a while. I think it was Josh talked about their defense, but losing Greg Rousseau, who a lot of people think is the best defensive prospect in this entire draft. I mean, last year in his first full year, I think he had something like 18 and a half tackles for loss, 15 sacks. The dude was an absolute stud, and he was probably going to be, replicating that production again this year. And like I said, he's probably going to be a top 5, top 6, top 7 pick guaranteed. The good thing for Miami, although they're losing Rousseau, they still have Quincy Roche, who's coming over from Temple, who a lot of people think can potentially be a first-round pick as well, if not kind of like early second. He's an absolute stud as well. So I think having him is definitely going to be a huge benefit for Miami, because had they not had Roche transfer and they would have lost Rousseau, I think it would have been a major issue for their defense. I am upset that the Rousseau opted to opt out, because having him and Roche together would have been something like what we saw at Clemson a few years back when they had all those first rounders, on that defensive front. So I'm kind of bummed about that, but it will be interesting to see their O-line. As Coster said in the chat, he said, just watch the Florida game from last year in regards to Miami's O-line. And I know a lot of people are talking about De'Ara King, the fact that he was doing what he did against, the American Conference competition. The American Conference, now granted, it's not quite what we've seen in the ACC the past few years. The American Conference very well might be better than the ACC, so I'm not going to go too in depth on that. But the fact that he was doing that against the American, now he has to face ACC competition. We'll have to wait and see. But again, if you can get 50 total touchdowns in 10 games, regardless of who you're playing, that's still remarkable. So I think that De'Ara King, I think he's going to be the difference maker. And I think it was Josh that might have said it, or it was Brady. I can't remember because you're saying such great information. It's the fact that when you have a quarterback like that, he can win you games. He'll be able to win you games. And I think De'Ara King has a chance. Are we all, as high on Miami as we'll see in about 30 seconds with our rankings. We'll have to wait and see. But in previous shows, we talked about a lot of teams, especially the SEC last week. We went more in depth on teams. Not really a whole lot of teams to go in depth on in regards to the ACC. We are going to put our projected standings on the screen in about a second. And unlike, when we do it in other episodes, we're just going to kind of talk about what the rankings are. We can take a few teams that we have mentioned and kind of spend a minute or two talking about them. But, I don't think we need to go in depth on Virginia Tech. Don't need to go in depth on Florida State because we can give our quick thoughts. But Brady, if you have the projected standings loaded up, we can get to those right here. Let me take the graphic off so it's not covering Josh. Here are our ACC projections. I'm just going to start with mine quickly. I do have North Carolina going 10-1. I know that Brady, I know that Josh has them going 9-2. Lyle's not as high on them. He has them going 7-4. I just think North Carolina, I think they're the real deal. I think we're going to see what they did in the final 3 games translate over to this upcoming season. Notre Dame going 9-2. If they don't go 9-2, they're going to go 10-1. And then for the most part, Louisville, Miami, I got them at 7-4. Virginia Tech at 7-4 as well. I am kind of high on them. And then for the most part, the rest is just these teams are going to be okay. Brady hit it perfectly where I think he said he has 10, 11
teams
that
have 6 wins.
Winning 6 wins. I mean, I think for the most part, Clemson, North Carolina, Notre Dame, you can lock those teams at winning, I think, at least 8 games, I want to say. When you looked at the rest of the list, when you go from Louisville all the way to the bottom, I wouldn't be shocked if Louisville wins 8 games. I wouldn't be shocked if they win 5 games. And I think with all these ACC teams, again, I got Florida State going 5-6. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida State comes out, they go 8-3. I wouldn't be shocked if Florida State comes out and they go 3-8. Same thing with some of these other ones. So I think for the most part, these 3 teams that, aside from Lyle, we all have in our top 3. That's what it's going to look like. Lyle obviously looks like he's the highest on Miami, which I think he can get to when he gets to his turn. But yeah, those are my thoughts and my official rankings in regards to ACC schools.
Yeah, kind of like what Blake said about North Carolina. I've got them coming in at 3. I'm not at 10-1, but 9-2. I think they arguably have the best wide receivers or group of wide receivers in the country, and you've got Sam Howell throwing the ball to them. So I think that bodes well for them. But for the most part, show me a defense because the offense is going to live up to expectations. So my standings for the ACC, no surprise, I've got Clemson going 11-0, Notre Dame going 10-1. Like I said earlier, I think they lose to Clemson, but I think they can beat them, just like I think that they can lose to anybody on their schedule. North Carolina at 9-2, Miami 7-4. Just too many questions with them. Virginia Tech at 7-4. I think they're going to be okay. Louisville at 6-5. I'm not super high on them. We talked about them earlier, and Brady kind of mentioned them too. He has them higher than I do in my standings. Andrew Coster, who was our guest earlier, said that he likes Louisville, but I have them going 6-5. Florida State, too many questions at 6-5. Pitt 6-5, and I've got Duke, Wake Forest, and Virginia all winning 5 games. Boston College, Syracuse, and NC State all winning 3. And Georgia Tech, I just don't think it's there. I think they go 1-10. They can go 2-9 too. They'll beat. I think they've got UAB week 1. They'll beat UAB, no question. But the rest of their schedule, I think realistically, they should lose every game. I'm not saying they can't upset somebody. They could pull it out. With Georgia Tech, they could play Clemson close for all I know. But I just don't think it happens for Georgia Tech this year. They'll beat UAB, and that's it.
For me, Clemson, Notre Dame, we talked about. That's pretty self-explanatory. Miami, again, it's only a 1-win difference from North Carolina. I just, like we talked about a couple minutes ago, I think De'Aaron King's that much of a difference maker. And also when you have a guy like Brevin Jordan catching balls as your tight end, I mean, he's a top 3 tight end because obviously there's Pitts and Freiermuth, but I have Jordan at 3 for sure. And that's a weapon that's deadly. So to have De'Aaron King have a weapon like that is huge. It's just all about the offensive line for me. North Carolina, again, they were 7-6 last year. I think they're really good. I think they have a ton of talent. And man, Sam Howell is one of the most fun quarterbacks to watch throw the ball that you can find in college football. The only thing is, again, do they put it all together after all the close games they had last year? And does the defense hold up? That was my one question. And maybe it was a little bit of a hot take to have North Carolina only at 7-4, but I just kind of want to wait and see with them. Louisville, it's kind of the same thing as North Carolina for me. Like 7-4, they have a quarterback, running back, receiver trio that's deadly. I mean, between Tutu Atwell at receiver, who went for 1,200 yards last year, you have Javian Hawkins at running back, who went for 1,500 yards, and then you have Mikael Cunningham as your quarterback. There's talent on that team. But again, it's the defense, and does it translate over from last year to this year? Louisville won 8 games last year. In an 11-game season, I just feel like it's going to be right around the same rate that it was last year. Pitt 7-4. Look, they lost Twyman. That defensive line is still really good, and I think that's going to really propel them this year to a point where they're competitive in the ACC, not winning but competitive. Then after that, it all kind of blends in. Florida State, Virginia Tech, Syracuse. I think it's going to be about a 4 to 5 win team, and then I have Boston College right at the bottom.
Blake, since we're on the topic of the ACC, I ask you again, how do you properly pronounce the capital of Kentucky? Is it Louisville or Louisville?
It's not the capital.
Good for you. You finally answered it right. Finally, you got it right after all
Dilly.
What's the capital?
You guys have to remember that going back to state capitals, for me, that was a lot farther back than it was for you guys. So my memory, it's what, 2 years? When did you guys do it? Because I think I did it in 3rd grade. Third or 4th grade. So
I don't know.
Blake was around when Kentucky was actually made a state. So
that was back in the 1990s. But speaking of Boston College, guys, did you see those uniforms they came out with the red bandana into the number?
Those are cool. The first time they wore them was against USC in like 2013, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
And they were really cool until they beat SC and stormed the field. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's when I learned just don't schedule Boston College for red bandana night because nobody makes it out of there. No one.
So you guys know the full story, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to New York in 15, 16, and went to the 9/11 memorial, and they have it there. And it was really moving to see it because I knew what the background was, and you read the whole thing. It's crazy story.
Yeah, so it's awesome. But I mean, we all had it, Brady. I mean, do you want to go in depth on
I'll just run through mine pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the top 4 or so are pretty much the same for everybody. Clemson, Notre Dame, North Carolina, all of which are within 2 losses. Louisville's going to have a great year, I think. What Coster said earlier, and you can see I'm pretty high on them now. I'm not going to dive into any team. I'm just going to give you pretty quick. Louisville 8-3. I think Virginia, yes, I lost Bryce Perkins. He's going to be the 3rd string quarterback for your Rams, Josh. So there you go.
Sir. He's going to take that starting job.
Behind former Arizona hotshot John Wolford.
Hey, don't forget they got Blake Bortles there that's coming for that starting job.
Oh, they do?
No, they don't. I don't think he's there. I think it's just those 3.
I think it's just those 3. Anyways,
remember that.
Miami 7-4. I think if De'Aaron King can get it figured out and the O-line can get it figured out, they'll have a pretty decent year. Pitt, middle of the pack as always. Florida State, middle of the pack. Virginia Tech, NC State is the one team that really has so many question marks for me. They could either be really good or really, really bad. Wake Forest, Duke, and Syracuse all 4-7. Boston College sticking towards the bottom 3-8. Move to the Ivy League, like I said, and then Georgia Tech 2-9.
I can't believe Blake Bortles is a free agent, man.
Yeah, they cut him
from that.
They also. Oh, I mean, good stuff, Brady. They also. I've seen some stuff they think John Wolford has looked really good in practice.
Yeah,
and I've seen a couple of the highlights that they've posted, and I'm like, dude can sling it.
I will say before we move on to our top 5 players, I just want to say for mine, I do have 2 sleepers who I think can make a push for the ACC title game. It's Miami. It just depends on how De'Aaron King looks. And Louisville. I mean, Lyle hit it perfectly. That trio is probably the most slept on trio in all college football. It's probably top 3, top 4 in regards to quarterback, wide receiver, running back. They're all electric. It's just a matter of, again, what can they get on defense? And can those 3 guys each live up to expectations? If they can get Cunningham, Tutu Atwell, and Hawkins to each, live up to what I think a lot of Louisville fans expect from them, they can be a scary good offensive team in the ACC that can shock a lot of people and win potentially 8 or 9 games. So those are my 2 sleepers, I guess, that can make some damage. But do you guys have any parting thoughts before we go to the top 5?
Back to the LA thing real quick. Blake, your boy Justin Herbert threw a pick 6 to Melvin Ingram in the 4-minute drill in practice this past week on the first play on a screen route.
Oh, no.
That's why
Oscar John Wolford, also former Wake Forest player.
Yes. Yeah. Captain Rob.
Yeah.
Oh, boy, Captain Rob. All right, boys. So it's time now to get to our top 5 players in the ACC. We do it every week. We give our top 5s to the position. Again, it can be your top 5 overall talent-wise, top 5 you're most excited for, however you want to be. So, guys, again, go 5. It doesn't have to be 5 through 1. It could be just 5 in general. So, Josh, we'll throw it to you. Your 5 players. And we've talked, a lot about a bunch of these players tonight. So unless it's a guy we haven't really mentioned, no need to really go in depth on why Trevor Lawrence is in your top 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go with what my rankings were, and 1, 2, and 3 in this order are Trevor Lawrence, Sam Howell, and Travis Etienne. I don't really need to go into too much detail. We actually haven't talked too much about Etienne tonight, but like we talked about a couple weeks ago when we were discussing Chuba Hubbard in Oklahoma State, he's right up there for the best running back in the country. And somehow, with how good he's been, I still think he's a little bit slept on. So those are my 1, 2, and 3. At number 4, I've got Marvin Wilson, D tackle from Florida State. I mean, his stats were really good last year, and they're just going to get better this year. I think he's probably their best defensive player and is a first-round pick. And at number 5, here's a guy who I think is going to really benefit from having De'Aaron King as a starting quarterback this year, and that's Brevin Jordan. He's a tight end at Miami. He was one of the top targets there last year. He only caught, I think, 30 passes last year, and I think that his receiving numbers are going to inflate dramatically. He's a big dude, too. He's a Bishop Gorman guy. He was the number 1 tight end in the country a couple years ago and the number 2 player out of Nevada. He's really good. I think that just looking at his stats from last year, maybe he doesn't make a top 5 list, but I think he's going to really benefit from De'Aaron King this year, and I think he's going to be his favorite target at Miami.
Okay, so I'm only going to explain one guy. After this, I'll fly through it. Number 5, I'm guessing nobody else is going to have him, but I have Kyle Hamilton, who's Notre Dame safety, at 5. And maybe this one is a little more on the excited to see side. But, I mean, this dude is off the charts, and I don't think it's going to take long for people to start recognizing who he is. If somebody asks me who Notre Dame's best player is, this is my answer. Like, he was a first-team freshman All-American last year. He's a preseason second-team All-American this year. And the dude, is 6'4", 215. I was reading an article earlier, a couple weeks ago, with somebody saying they think this guy can be like Isaiah Simmons come when he's draft eligible, which, by the way, I mean, he's only a sophomore and he's already projected to go in the first round come 22. And yeah, it's a lofty comparison. But then today, PFF College tweeted this thing. Kyle Hamilton across 250 coverage snaps last season, 4 picks, no touchdowns allowed. Passer rating when he was targeted combined, 1.3.
Wow.
So, I mean, if you're going to know one name on this Notre Dame defense, that's who it is. He's a sophomore, and the dude is like a quick riser. After that, it's the same as everybody else's. I have Marvin Wilson at 4. I have Travis Etienne at 3. I have Sam Howell at 2. I have Trevor Lawrence at 1.
I'm only going to bring up 4 because I can. So I think my 3 are pretty easy. Obviously, Lawrence, Etienne, and Sam Howell. My 4th, this guy's been a starter for Clemson since 2017.
Hunter Renfrow?
No. Yeah, there was dust, Josh. This guy's been a starter since he showed up to Clemson at 2017. He's done such a great job at his position, and no one gives love to the special teamers. I'm going Will Sweeney, who is the holder for Clemson, and Dabo's son. He's been the starting holder for Clemson since 2017. He's a senior now, so Will Sweeney, I'm giving you props.
I was going to say, what are you going to do
starting holder
kids? But I forgot that Sweeney's kid is still there.
He's still there. He started as a walk-on. He's entering the 2020 season. He's caught 21 passes for 139 yards and a touchdown.
And the average amount that Clemson was up by during those stats is about 55.
Oh yeah, but hey, he's been in early in games. Granted, when they score in the first 6 seconds of a game, he's right there as a holder, ready. So that's him. He's great at it.
Hey, you got to
Will Sweeney, baby.
Hey, without them, where would we be?
Special teams matters.
They do. So I like it. As always for mine, I just go who I'm most excited to see play. Had we done this list about a month ago, there'd be a bunch of guys on this list that have since opted out, so they're not going to be on my list. But no particular order, just 5 I'm really looking forward to seeing play. Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne, Sam Howell, De'Ara King, and Tutu Atwell. I think Tutu Atwell, I mean, this guy, I'm not going to say he's like Rondale Moore, but in regards to just being an electrifying playmaker, this guy, if you guys watch his highlights, he's a pretty fun guy. I think he's also like 5'7", 5'8". I want to say. I'm just going to quickly like look up what his height is. He's 5'9", 165. So if this guy gets tackled, R.I.P. R.I.P. But guys, those are our top 5 players, which means it's time for our Q&A. I did forget to tweet it out on Twitter until an hour beforehand. Unfortunately,
first time doing the show, Blake.
First time doing the show. Unfortunately, no time to get to our Twitter questions today. So if we get any good questions in the live chat, we'll get to those. Again, if you guys want your question answered, if you guarantee chance to get it answered, you guys can donate $1 or $2 to the super chat. Helps the show out. Get your question answered. So again, if you guys have any college football related questions in regards to the ACC, in regards to just college football, in regards to anything else, I'm sure we're going to get 1 or 2 from Short Round that have nothing to do with college football. They're always excited. And again, I can't stress this enough. Unique, different, and fun questions get top priority. We always get questions like, what do you think of this team? What do you think of this player? Which we kind of, when you watch, shows on a week-to-week basis, at one point we do mention likely that team or that player. Come up with something unusual. Come up with something unique. That way you get your question answered. And here we go. I didn't have to see what it is because Short Round already asked us. You guys have to choose between a fork or a spoon for the rest of your life. Which stays, which goes, and you guys can't say a spork. Genius.
I saw this a second ago and I thought of it. I'm saying spoon. I love the fork, but like, how are you going to eat soup with a fork?
You just don't eat soup. You give up on soup for the rest of your life. That's it.
I barely eat soup in the first. I'm going to go, oh man, this is tough.
Well, no. But Brady.
Yes, Josh.
You have to think. You can still eat foods that you eat with a fork with a spoon. You just
which is what I thought about.
And then you just scoop it instead of stab it.
Exactly.
You cannot do that with a fork.
Really? I thought the opposite thing. Like, I'm thinking about, like, for example, eating ice cream. Like, it's weird, but you can eat ice cream with a fork.
Do the bit.
What bit?
Dane Cook.
Oh God. But I think there's more things that like are replaceable to eat with a fork than a spoon. I feel like, but I don't know. I guess we have a bunch of different opinions on this one.
But cereal, can't do that.
Well, Lyle doesn't eat
cereal. If you have it without milk,
he eats it.
What is the point then?
He eats
it
dry
finger food. It can be.
I think the spoon is one of those things where like, oh, you always use a fork, but like you don't realize you're missing a spoon until it's gone.
True.
That's true too.
I would choose a spoon because you can literally, some things might be a little more difficult, but you can literally eat everything with a spoon. Fork,
yeah.
Eating a fork, with soup, as you said, ice cream is a difficulty with the fork. Spoon makes everything that much easier. So I'm going to go with the spoon.
I have a follow-up question. Do you eat mac and cheese with a fork or a spoon?
It's just whatever I grab.
Fork.
It's whatever I grab.
Spoon. It depends.
It depends on the mac and cheese. If it's like Velveeta, spoon. If it's
for Lyle,
Kraft,
it's whatever Meredith brings Lyle to his room and then he phones out and says, "Mother, Oreo smoothie now."
I have this is a 100% serious question. It is the most important question I have ever asked on this show to you three.
Big spoon, easily.
No. Oh. You're ahead of me. Have the three of you ever used a spork?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I think
maybe a long time ago.
It's like you only get it when you get like carry out food from somewhere. Like Boston Market's like the most randomly obscure place I could think of that has the spork.
Doesn't KFC do it?
KFC probably does it too.
KFC does sporks.
I have never used one.
You've never used a spork?
Never used
one. You haven't lived, Josh.
Josh, have you not used a bendy straw either?
No, I've used a bet like the ones that have the little like ripple that you can bet. Oh yeah, I've used
That's
those.
what a bendy straw is.
Well, I was just curious if he was thinking like the silly straw one.
Oh,
those kind of
who
bent.
knows? So short round is always with the great questions. Cost Sports. Andrew wants to know which team should get a live mascot next.
Arizona State. Bring me Satan.
I can guess Lyles. I think we all know what that's going to be.
What an actual
Pistol Pete?
Actually shooting off gunshots.
And here's what I'm going to say. Iowa State, they're going to have an actual cyclone just going around the stadium all the time.
No, dude, we need Tulane to have an actual wave. Like an actual wave. I'm trying to think of like actual.
Or it's like those things at the water park where the big bucket gets filled up with water and it just gets dumped on people. They just do that to Tulane fans at games
after every touchdown. Yeah.
All right,
instead of like confetti or fireworks.
Splash zone. They have a splash zone.
Have a splash zone. I like it. All right, guys. Savage Cabbage 13 wants to know, is Bowling Green a top 13 team in the MAC?
Yes.
Yeah.
They have to be.
Oh, this is a great one in regards to that previous question. The Santa Clara, or it's actually Santa Cruz, because my cousin went there. The Banana Slugs.
They actually.
And there it goes.
Okay, I'm not going to say that's a -4 though, because I felt like there are a couple like things I've said on the show that have redeemed myself. Somebody said facts, Josh, in the comments. I don't know what that was for, but that's easily a +1 right there. So let's estimate a -2. Can we do that?
I like it.
I've gotten some pucks on net, but they do have banana slugs all over campus.
I like a lot of people are talking about sporks and where they get sporks and whatnot.
2.5.
I like it. Remington Rawls, what is James Blackman's touchdown to interception ratio this season for Florida State?
16 touchdowns, 7 picks. 8 picks.
Okay, so let's see. Last year it was 17 touchdowns, 11 picks. Obviously, it's less games this year. I'll say.
Wait, what was it last year?
17 and 11. Not great.
Yeah.
I'll say 16 and 10. I mean, I don't think it gets that much better.
19 and 9.
10 and 30. Let's just have him have an awful season. Guys, this one's going to take some thinking because I have to do my research. Coke products or Pepsi products?
We're talking about top to bottom?
Top 5 from each. So I guess this is you guys, I think, can choose one and then give your top 5 unless you guys want to give your top 5 for both. But this might require some searching. I will say right here, I Googled each one. So in regards to Pepsi products, you got Pepsi. Looks like you got Mountain Dew. Dr. Pepper's a Pepsi product. Gatorade. Lyle Muscle Milk, that's in for Pepsi products.
Rock and Refuel or no?
Oh, I think it's just Rock and Protein now. I don't think they go by Rock and Refuel anymore.
Doritos?
Yeah, Pepsi's got, PepsiCo, so they got, Doritos, they got Cheetos, all those good things.
That's
Ruffles,
tough.
potato chips.
I'm just gonna rank overall like what my my top 5 are. Me, as you guys know, I'm a Diet Coke guy. I love Diet Coke. Gotta watch my weight, so I gotta go with the Diet Coke on that one. So we're gonna go with Diet Coke. That's my absolute favorite. Number 2, I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew. I love me some Mountain Dew. You can't go wrong there. I love me some Mountain Dew. Number 3, I'm gonna go with Sprite. I think Sprite's fantastic. I love me some Sprite. Number 4, Diet Pepsi. Diet Pepsi, although it's not no Diet Coke, I really do enjoy it. In regards to number 5, I hate Dr. Pepper. I'm not a fan of Dr. Pepper. What else do they got? I'm just gonna get my top 4, and there it is. Like, I don't drink root beer. I hate root beer, so I'm not gonna go with root beer. I'm not a huge Fanta guy. So that's my top 4 right there.
Okay, yeah, I'll say Coke products are better than Pepsi products. I mean, because I don't know, you look at Sprite versus Sierra Mist. I feel like people drink Sprite over Sierra Mist, right? Like, I feel like that's just the popular. Yeah,
Sierra Mist. I forgot. And then 7-Up. I don't know what 7-Up what they're a part of. I don't know.
Yeah, so
7-Up is Pepsi.
Mm-hmm. I think the classic Coke probably has to be at 1. I'd put Sprite at 2. Coke Zero at 3. I mean, Blake doesn't feel the same way. I feel like if you were going to choose between a Diet Coke and a Coke Zero, I think Coke Zero's taste a little better. I'll put Powerade at 4. That's a Coke product. And then I'll put Minute Maid at 5 because I just learned like 10 seconds ago that's also a Coke product. So I'll put Minute Maid.
Minute Maid's a good one. I like that. I'll jump in. Well, if Josh, you ready for it?
I'm ready, but you can go.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think that Coke has a lot of good brands, and they've got a lot of. I think I like maybe more of Cokes, but actually, I don't know. I'm looking at Pepsi's. So Pepsi, I think I'm gonna go with them because I'm not a huge fan of Coca-Cola. I like Sprite, but unlike Blake, Dr. Pepper is my favorite soda. They also do Schweppes. Schweppes is that's not right.
Ginger ale, right?
Yeah, Schweppes is ginger ale, but I'm pretty sure that
I think they're their own company.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure that Schweppes is Coca-Cola, but I don't know. But they also do Gatorade, and they do like the ready-made the Starbucks drinks are Pepsi. Dude, Tostitos, Lay's, Doritos. I've got to go with Pepsi.
So, Josh, it is owned by Keurig Dr. Pepper. So they're their own intermediate. So there's actually
it's in the Pepsi family.
I don't know.
Well, Dr. Pepper, but
This could be an entire show. So, Captain Rob,
look,
we're too invested in this now.
yeah, I would even give it mine.
Oh man, sorry, Brad. I thought you
Blake again. Look at him go.
Blake.
I'm just trying to get to these questions.
Big Coke Zero guy. I'm a big Coke Zero guy. I don't know if I go
vanilla.
I was getting there, Josh. You ruined my joke. Orange vanilla Coke. Yeah, orange vanilla Coke. Not bad. Not bad.
Not a fan.
Love Sprite. You can't go wrong with an ice cold Sprite. Gatorade is obviously under that umbrella as well, too. So a nice white cherry glacier freeze Gatorade. We could have a whole conversation on Gatorade power rankings too.
I'll let you finish before I want to, because I just want to add right now. It turns out Powerade is in fact a member of the Coca-Cola family. So for my number 5, I'm going to put the always delicious Mountain Blueberry
Mystic
Powerade. Mystic Mountain Blueberry as my number 5. It is refreshing. It is delicious on a hot summer day, and I enjoy it.
And I'm going to Diet Dr. Pepper too.
That's your go-to. That was your go-to.
That's my go-to. 0. That's my go-to. Is Diet Dr. Pepper.
I like it. So, guys, what's a show without our man Connor coming in? So, Connor, thank you for the donation. We appreciate it, my man. He missed it. So, we actually didn't really go too in depth on Virginia Tech. I think all of us had different. I'm not gonna have Brady get it up, but I do have these in front of us. I have Virginia Tech going 7-4. Josh has Virginia Tech going 7-4. Lyle has Virginia Tech going 6-5, and Brady has Virginia Tech going 6-5. So we're both fairly high on Virginia Tech. It's just a matter of we talked about this. What I brought up was, aside from Clemson, North Carolina, and Notre Dame, I think those are going to be the 3 teams we see at the top. Pretty much all the other ACC teams, I wouldn't be shocked if Virginia Tech wins 8 games. I wouldn't be shocked if they win 4 games. So it's just going to matter because everyone on any given week, maybe with the exception of maybe like Georgia Tech, I think everyone in the ACC can beat anyone on any given week. So it's going to be interesting to see. So Josh and I, we're the highest. We have them winning 7 games, and Brady and Lyle, they have them winning 6 games. So drop a comment in the live chat. Let us know how many games you think they're going to win. But we're still fairly high on them. We think they're going to finish top 5, top 6 in the division. But we all don't think that. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they compete for an ACC title game, but I don't think any 4 of us, unless these guys think Virginia Tech has the chance to make a run. But I think we're all kind of on the same boat in regards to Virginia Tech, unless, again, you guys have different thoughts, different things you want to quickly mention.
Nope, I think that sums it up.
You hit it.
All right. So as always, Connor, thanks again, my man. We appreciate the donation. Glad you're able to make it in here just in the nick of things. Where to go? Here we go. Mahomes 15, Spencer Rattler to Theo Weiss. Guys, did you hear that Spencer Rattler was officially named the starter today?
Surprising. No way.
I think he's just commenting every wide receiver they have and just saying
that's an awesome name.
Dude, I love Charleston Rambo.
Oh,
Here you go.
You got Hollywood Brown, you got CeeDee Lamb, you got Charleston Rambo. Phenomenal Oklahoma receiver names.
Yeah, Connor, so do I, though. So what does that say? It doesn't say anything.
Here we go. Connor says, I was thinking of 7 to 8 wins as well, maybe up to 9. They don't play Notre Dame, and I have Clemson, Virginia, and Miami at home. So there you go. I mean, there's a chance that they can compete for that as well. Guys, wrapping up the Q&A right now. Did you guys hear that Oklahoma versus Who was it? It was some Missouri team, Missouri State or something like that. Is $55 on pay-per-view to watch.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Like,
only parents will be listening to that. I would rather wait for the highlights to come out, dude. But then again,
Missouri
that's me.
State.
Yeah, Missouri State.
State.
That's me being a broadcaster. I'll just go on TuneIn Radio and just listen to the game.
Yeah.
Like,
or you just go to Reddit streams and watch it for free.
That's true. You could do that too.
Like,
I mean,
again,
dude, Spencer Rattler's going to be out of that game by the second quarter when it's 35-0. Like,
it's gonna be bad. But guys, that does wrap up this week's show. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to follow the show on Twitter at the HHShow_. Follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. As I said, if we reach 100 followers by next week's show, there might be a little giveaway. There might be some fun bonus content. So if you have an Instagram account, go over there, follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlights Show. You guys can also listen to the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. The link to that is in the description below, or you can go to Spotify. You guys can go to Apple. You guys can search us there. You guys can find us. You guys can become a Patreon member for as little as $1 a month, unlock exclusive content. We saw Andrew on the show earlier, and that's because he's a Patreon member. So if you guys want to get on a future show, talk some college football with us, talk about a segment, talk about a team, a player, whatever you want, become a member, and you guys can join a show with us. In regards to next week's show, guys, I have no clue what next Tuesday's show is going to be about. That's going to be something that we got to figure out in the next
Trivia again.
We can do a trivia. So if you guys have any show suggestions, there's anything you'd like to see us talk about in a future show, hit us up on Twitter at the HHShow_. Go to our Instagram, drop a comment. Let us know what you want us to talk about in regards, because I think not this upcoming Saturday, the following Saturday, Big 12 action begins. I think ACC action begins. So once we get that going, we're going to be able to have more consistent college football talk where we talk about the games, players, all that fun stuff. But in regards to next week, I think trivia is a good idea. But as always, if you guys have any ideas on anything you guys would like to see in regards to next week's show, someone said Big 10 preview. Hey, maybe we'll do a Big 10 preview. As Short Round here says, ended up with Love Shack. That's a good time as well. So again, follow us on Twitter at the HHShow_. Follow us on Instagram at Harris Highlight Show. Guys, that wraps it up. Any parting words before we rejoin next Tuesday?
I'm going to be a Clemson fan for this year just because they've struggled and had so much disappointment for so long, and now this could finally be their year. This
You
is
have one of their shirts.
This is a pre-printed national championship shirt.
Hey, we can do the BYU Navy recap for next week's show.
Yes,
and whatever random games we have this week. So there's
next week we should just do a high school football show, and it'll only be like Alabama and Texas and Georgia. Let's do it.
There you go. All right, guys. But for Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Follow us everywhere you possibly can. Become a member on Patreon so we can get a personal Zoom call with all of you guys. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And we're going to see you guys right back here again next Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, live here on YouTube.